now I want to get into the nitty gritty stuff. Okay. I'm going to get into the hard questions now because I want to know like, what's been the biggest challenge for y'all? The biggest learning curve that it took y'all a second to figure out, and maybe you felt a little uncomfortable, like, I just don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if this is going to be something that we can sustain like over the long haul. Does anybody have any like stories of anything they could share?
So I think when we, because we used to actually do an hour, right? And kind of like coming into the school year, once everyone had kids, especially because we're all in different time zones, our kids are different ages and going back to school, right? Like trying to coordinate your own children is difficult enough, but then do it with 3 other people's children on top of that in different time zones, like that becomes extremely difficult. So I think, like I was probably the biggest proponent for being against like shortening the time. And like everyone else was like, yeah, no, I think we should do it. I think we should do it. And like, you kind of have to realize like, right, like we're a team. This isn't just my show. I can't make the decisions. So like, it has to be a part of it. And you have to kind of know that there's this give and take. And you kind of have to know like, all right, what are you most passionate about? Where do you want to pick your battles? Like, what do you want, or like, how do you want to contribute as a team member? Knowing that, right, we're doing this for the greater good of the team, and even more specifically for the greater good of our audience and our listeners and our watchers. So.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, Dan. And I think as we've gone along, without like verbally saying it, through action have adapted certain principles, different values that we hold true. I know Claire and I have had conversations about, flexibility is a huge piece of it, right? Because again, we all have young kids, we're all super busy, like we have to be flexible. So there have been times where, something will happen with one of our kids and we're not able to make the show, or different changes because of the COVID years, right? So like one of the biggest issues I'm having right now is in 2020, at least in the very beginning, a lot of my in-person events went bye-bye. And then because so many companies right now are saying, no, we don't want a Zoom training, we want you here in person. Now my calendar it's madness, right? So in the last few months, there have been more in-person workshops and events and conferences than I even know what to do with. And it's been extremely challenging to try to figure out, all right, well, I can't make the show because I'll be speaking in such and such city. And it's just allowing people to have the flexibility to do that. And then also being humble. I know a lot of listeners may not think that, the word humility or humble is flashy or cool or exciting to be, but I feel like, especially when you have 4 people involved, you can't make it work unless there's an element of humility. And I love how everyone brings a different strength to the table. Like, I stink at so many things in life. I'm really, really good at a few, but I stink at everything else. And I need to be willing to say, all right, well, Aaron's amazing at this. Claire's fantastic at this. Dan knows what he's doing in this arena. There have been many times where I'm like, I don't agree with that, Dan, but then Dan is an extremely analytical, planning, very strategic when it comes to different elements of AI and all these different things that I don't know anything about. And some of the disagreements I've had with Dan, it ends up being better than I thought. Like we had disagreements on a whole slew of different things. I'm like, wait a second, this is Dan's expertise. And then we go along with it and it works out. So I really think, being flexible, being humble, and then also that element of creativity has been an absolute must. When you're stretched for time, like you have to figure out a way to be creative to make it work.